I mean, I remember sitting at the Democratic convention and looking after 3 or 4 days and saying, not a whole lot of men on this program. And that's intentional because they thought this was going to be an abortion election. But was that a misstep?
I think that abortion being the top issue was obviously a misstep because we saw that it didn't actually bring out the women that they expected either. But I would argue that from the onset, the polling showed that there were stark divisions between what men valued and what women valued, which isn't actually surprising across this country. But the economy was something that everybody valued. The way it was messaged, I think, was problematic.
Have my eyes deceived me, or is CNN admitting that Kamala Harris did something wrong on her campaign trail? Well, we're about to find out. There's a video here with CNN exposing themselves. But before we get into that, make sure that you subscribe to RTM News so you can be updated on all the videos that we put out on a daily basis. Because yes, it is daily, and it will literally alert the other people at YouTube that you like our videos and that maybe other people might as well. So then we'll push it out to them as well. So make sure they're hitting the subscribe button, you're hitting the like button, you're hitting the share button, you're commenting all the fun stuff. Without further ado, I'm Titus. Let's get into this video.
Men are better than they think they are. However, messaging has just gotten out of control from both sides. You take a look at the fact that across the board, didn't matter what race they are, males turned towards Donald Trump.
Sure did.
Turned away from the Democratic Party. And why? That's the real question that should be asked. Why? Because in so many ways, the party basically dismissed him, left him out of the conversation, and not until the very end decided, I better reach out and see if these guys are worth talking to.
Yeah.
And if you just look at the fact that we have nobody, I think, in this country right now, the majority of people, believe in an equal playing field where everybody gets to participate and play. But when you start shoving certain things down people's throats that they don't want to have to eat, you're going to have to deal with the consequences of forcing somebody to do something that they didn't want to do.
Well,
And that's what they kept doing, forcing things down people's throat. The American people did not care about the fact that you guys wanted to prioritize certain demographic of people. Leave my kids out of it. Don't throw it down my kids' throat. Shove it down, literally stuffing it down their throat. You must believe this way. And if you don't, you're a problem. You're misogynist, homophobe, xenophobe, all the bigot, transphobe, all of it. You're literally all the buzzwords. That's what you are if you don't accept what we're shoving down your throat. And like he said, American people were done with that. Also, why can't I afford a loaf of bread? Why is this milk? Why is egg so expensive? Why are they focusing on this when I'm struggling like this? And I think a lot of American people felt that way. I mean, I know they did because there was also the 2024 election. And so, I mean, what he's saying, he's hitting the nail on the head because people were done with it. The messaging was so off this Kamala campaign. And I'm so grateful for it because we got a good result.
the messaging toward men that Trump was doing, and then there was the messaging toward women that the Harris-Biden campaign were doing. I mean, I remember sitting at the Democratic convention and looking after 3 or 4 days and saying, not a whole lot of men on this program. And that's intentional because they thought this was going to be an abortion election. But was that a misstep?
I think that abortion being the top issue was obviously a misstep because we saw that it didn't actually bring out the women that they expected either. But I would argue that from the onset, the polling showed that there were stark divisions between what men valued and what women valued, which isn't actually surprising across this country. But the economy was something that everybody valued. The way it was messaged, I think, was problematic. But in addition to that, looking at the psychological aspect of things, men have felt left out for quite some time, be it whether it was social groups, be it whether it was, leading to depressive states or other things. They've been very vocal about that. That existed long before the pandemic. I do think that there needed to be stronger outreach to men and men of all backgrounds. But in addition to that, there needed to be more men at the helm of the decision-making process on the campaign. A campaign that is run by a lot of women is probably not going to be the same campaign that can speak to men. I'm glad that we have this.
All the conservative creators like me and many other people out there, Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, I mean, he's controversial now, I guess. But like so many other people, Xavier DeRusso, Emily Says America, all these people are out here to just completely change, turning, shifting the needle, turning the needle, making people realize that maybe I don't want to deal with, or what are they talking about? The Democratic politicians, what are they talking about? I'm struggling. What are they talking about? In the messaging towards men, they're right. Focusing on woman was a super bad campaign strategy considering the fact that men have felt so neglected for so much time. And we have been. We've been told that we're terrible. F the patriarchy. We all suck. Taylor Swift put it in one of her songs and the girls at those concerts are screaming, patriarchy, the patriarchy. It's like, yo, what did we do to you? And like, oh man, anyways. So yeah, correct. I agree with them here.
to be fair,
circle here
both
because
Trump
it matters.
and Harris's campaign were run by a mixture of men and women. I'm not sure. I think it's just about a theory of the case.
But no,
right?
a lot of the messaging strategies that were developed to men by white women. And I think that is a problem.
Interesting. Find this interesting, Scott Galloway, who has a podcast, many podcasts, but he's working on a book about what's going on with men in the country. He writes this: young American men are in a crisis of underemployment, under-socialization. Soaring college costs affect people regardless of their gender, but manufacturing jobs, once a ticket to the middle class for men without college degrees, have been offshored. Housing is increasingly unaffordable. Men are stuck. They are isolated, despairing, and unproductive, prone to obesity, drug addiction, and suicide, susceptible to misogyny, conspiracy theories, and radicalization. They make inadequate mates, employees, and citizens. It's a pretty dire picture that he paints there, and it seems what he's saying is that Trump spoke to that.
Well, I agree. First of all, I agree with most of everything that's been said here already, and I agree with some of this assessment. I do think we have a crisis of especially young men in this country, and they're in many ways disconnected from the rest of their families, disconnected from their communities, disconnected from our political culture, disconnected from our civil culture. And that's a real problem for a society that depends on all of us to be engaged and working together to make it as good of a country and as good of a society as it can be. I think the Democrats in this election made men feel like that the patriarchy is over, boys, and we're going to put you in the back seat for a while, and you're just going to have to accept it, without any thought to the ramifications of telling people who are out honestly trying to make a living, provide for their families, be good husbands, be good fathers. When you tell people who are doing their level best that either A, it's not good enough, or B, you're part of the problem, what do you expect? And then finally, as a political tactic, the attempt to put walls on the ticket, and that was going to somehow solve all of the problems that had been built up for years.
The guy who lied about when he went to China. The timeline. Oh, well, I misspoke about whether or not he was fighting in battle as well. The guy was literally like a pathological liar, and then just tried to gaslight everyone into believing that it was a mistake. No, you don't misspeak on whether or not you'd been in active battle. Like, that's crazy. No, Tim Walz was a terrible pick, and then he got bodied by J.D. Vance in that debate. Like, crazy work.
Was ridiculous, because it turns out Walz was the last person that men wanted to hear from. And I remember at the beginning of that whole campaign, when they put him on, I sat right here, and people were like, oh, they got camouflaged hats. They're going to be wearing them in the deer stands this fall. And I think to your point that you just made, that was not, that idea that was not formulated by a bunch of dudes who actually go deer hunting. It was come up with by a bunch of people who've never met a dude that actually goes deer hunting. But when you try to put that kind of window dressing on a real communications problem or a real relationship problem, it gets exposed immediately.
Exactly. Also, the Democratic Party is just so detached from masculinity in men. You can't sit there and propagate trans-identified men, trans-identified women over the actual men and actual women, and then think, oh, last minute, let's try and pivot their way and let's throw a camouflage hat on Tim Walz and let's act as if, oh, and me and Tim, Kamala Harris, me and Tim have guns. We don't go. Someone comes in my place, they're getting shot. They're getting shot by the gun that I got. The buyback girl? The buyback girl has a gun. She has a Glock. And she says that everybody shows up, they're gonna get shot. So like with the Second Amendment is the purpose of the Second Amendment, so we can protect ourselves from people that try and come into our homes and harm our families, or from government tyranny, or whatever the reason may be. You got a Glock, but you're trying to get it to buyback. So we got to give you ours, but you can keep yours? Got it. That's wild. That's crazy work. Okay, Kamala. And so all the things, you're so detached from masculinity, so detached from men, while trying to, at the very last minute, like draw them in. Having Obama tell these black men, like, hey, she's one of us. She went to school with you. She went to here with you. She was raised like you. First of all, we found out she was black 0.23 seconds ago. Like, nobody's identified with her, like, in that way. And even if, like, that doesn't matter. She's under an administration that has literally put us through the ringer, and we don't want to deal with it anymore. And so, yeah, I'm glad CNN's calling it out. I mean, I will never, no matter what they do, I feel like trust them fully. But I appreciate them for being as honest as they could be in this video here, because it's so true. The Democratic Party has detached themselves from masculinity and men. And so men were like, all right, bet. We're going to go with people that are representing all of us and actually think that we have something to offer, because we do. Boom. CNN, thank you for your service, for actually telling the truth for once in your entire institution. I'm just yapping at this point. Anyways, comment down your thoughts below, what you thought about this video. Make sure that you are subscribed, liking, sharing, all that fun stuff. So as I said previously, it will be pushed through the algorithm to more eyes, to more people, so we can be that alternative media that doesn't lie like CNN. All right, guys. See you guys next time. Peace.